Rob Ryder here, February 12th, 2012. Um, I'm going to read you some stuff that uh, everybody needs to know. So please pay attention to this. If you don't want to have to do this stuff yourself, here's how you don't have to do it yourself. Apparently, there's people that do it for you when you accept their oath. I've been reading this book from a guy called Fortescue back in the 13th century. Here's a link to the book, and here's something about him. John Fortescue wrote a book called In Praise of the Law of England. And, if you can go with the fact that the laws are based on the laws of England, that's what they say, okay, these are the laws they're talking about. Blackstone wrote a book, called the Commentaries of English Law. Coke wrote a book called The Institutes of the Laws of England. Here's one in praise of the law of England. I wonder if this is what they're talking about. So I'm going to read an excerpt out of his book. But first, a little bit about him. He accompanied Queen Margaret in her court in their exile on the continent and returned with them afterwards to England. During their wanderings, the Chancellor, he was a Chancellor, wrote for the instruction of a young prince, his celebrated work in the praise of the laws of England, in which he made the first expression of what would later be known in Blackstone's formulation, stating that one would much rather that 20 guilty persons should escape the punishment of death than one innocent person being condemned and suffer capitally. Okay. Capital punishment. They didn't like it. So in that book, he's got these sections about, now again, he's a chancellor talking to young prince. We're going to talk to so it's a father-son talk. It's a book about a chancellor schooling his prince. And because chancellors are so important in what we're doing, anything he has to say you might want to listen to. Well, he's explained what a sergeant at law is. Chapter L and Chapter LI. But before I read that, I thought this was very, 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 very interesting. Let's start with a little something about who they are before we read a whole story about them. Blacks first. Sergeant at law. A barrister of the common law courts of high standing, and of much the same rank as doctor of law is in ecclesiastic courts. Doctor at law, they're ecclesiastic. These sergeants seem to have derived their title from the old Knights Templar, among whom there existed a peculiar class under the denomination of Friar Sergeant. Friar Tuck. Go figure. And to have continued as a separate fraternity, okay, they've continued as a separate fraternity from a very early period in the history of the legal profession. So the sergeants at law go back as far as the frickin' history of the legal profession goes back. The barrister who first assumed the old monastic, he's a monk, all right, monastic title, were those who practiced in the court of common pleas until a very recent period. Yeah, right. You're going to tell me that they've taken a position that has been around since the beginning of the legal profession system, thousands of years, always been one, and now it's been taken out. I don't think so. I think they changed the names to protect the guilty. So, but my prince, since you are so desirous to know, wherefore the laws of England, the degrees bachelor and doctor, are not conferred as the professions of the canon and civil law in our universities. So in their universities they teach canon and civil law. I would give you to understand that though in our Inns of Court there be no degrees, common law attorneys, sergeants at law, get their training at a place called the Inns of Court. They don't go to the university, to which bear those titles. Yet there is in them conferred a degree that is an honorary estate. And you're going to see these people go through almost like a coronation. These are part of the living that now exist with a lesser estate. They gave up their estate, but they get to have the status of alive. no less celebrated and solemn than that of a doctor, which is called the degree of sergeant at law. And it is conferred in the following manner. All right, this is how we. All right, let's learn about sergeants at law. So the Lord Chief Justice of the Common Pleas. All right, there you go. The Lord Chief Justice of the Common Pleas. Go find the Lord Chief Justice of the Common Pleas. Ask him who the sergeant at law are today. I'm sure he knows. You want a list of them in your area. By and with the device and the consent of the judges, is wont to pitch upon, as often as he see fitting, 7 or 8 of the discreeter persons, such have made the greatest proficiency in the general study of laws, and whom they judged best qualified. Every once in a while they take 7 or 8 out of who knows how many. So it's the top, it's the cream, the most well studied. The manner is to deliver in their names in writing to the High Lord Chancellor of England. High Lord Chancellor, Lord High Chancellor. I think he'd be the guy that's over the can't remember the name of the church. All right, you guys know which one I'm talking about. There's 4 of them. Chancery, the frickin' Chancery Court. Thank you, the Chancery Court. So this guy's over the Chancery Court, so they get delivered to him. Who in virtue of the king's writ, because the Chancery Court writes the writs, the original writs come out of the Court of Chancery, so that's who this guy is, shall forthwith command every one of the persons so pitched upon, that he be before the king at the day certain to take upon him a state and degree of sergeant at law, under a great penalty, in every one of said writs specified and limited. They take a penalty to have this ceremony done. Again, they get to have the status of living, but they don't have access to their estate. It's been limited somehow. You have an unlimited estate. So at which day these parties, summoned and appearing, each of them shall be sworn upon the Holy Gospel, that he will be ready at further day and place to be appointed to take upon this state and degree of sergeant at law, and that he shall at the same time give gold as according to custom of realm, such as cases have been used and accustomed to be done. How each is to behave and demean himself, the particulars of the ceremony, the manner how these estates and degrees are to be conferred and received, I forbear to insert. It will take up a large description that consists of such sufficient discourse. Besides, at other times I have talked it over to you in our common conversations. So he ain't going to tell us about the ceremony. But I desire that you should know that at a time and place appointed, those who are chosen hold a sumptuous feast, like that of a coronation. Like that at a coronation. Okay? I'm saying they've been coronated. This is to continue for 7 days together. Neither shall any one of the newly created sergeants be at less expense, suitable to the solemnity of his creation. 260 pounds upwards expenses, the whole 8 exceed 3,200 marks. To make up which one article, every one shall make present of gold rings to the value in the whole of 40 pounds at least English money. In English money, whatever English money is. I very well remember when I took upon me the state and degree of sergeant at law. So he took on the state and degree of sergeant at law, right? He's not a sovereign nation state. He's being governed. He's going to take an oath. That my bill for gold rings came to 50 pounds. All right, so he bought 50 pounds worth of gold. Each sergeant at the time of his creation gives to every prince of the blood, to every duke, to every archbishop, who shall be present at the solemnity, to the High Lord Chancellor, and to the Treasurer of England, to each. Okay, so he's giving stuff to everybody. Everybody gets something. And everybody gets some more. All right. I'm not going to read it. If you want to read it all, go ahead and do it. I'm going to. All right. So it's a present of rings. So, okay. There is not in any other kingdom or state any particular degree conferred on practitioners of the law as such. So this is the only place that this is done, in England, under the laws of England. Unless it be in the kingdom of England. Neither does it happen that in any other country an advocate enriches himself so by his practice as a sergeant at law. No one be he never so well read and practiced in the laws can be made a judge in the court of the king's bench or the common pleas, which are supreme ordinary courts of the kingdom. Right? So only a sergeant at law can become a judge on the king's bench in common pleas. Well, the guy that sits in common pleas is also the chancellor or the court of chancery. And these are the supreme ordinary courts of the kingdom. These are the supreme courts. You only have 4 courts you need to deal with as a man. You got the court of chancery, the king's bench, the court of exchequer, and the court of common pleas. The 4 courts. 2 of them are always supposed to be in the same place. They're all, in England. They were in the with the Archbishop of Canterbury. Right, that's where the Court of Common Pleas is, and that's where the Chancery Court is. And the other 2, the Exchequer and the King's Bench, follow the king. They go wherever the king is. But those 2 stay stationary in one particular place. I'm going to say it's your Archbishop's diocese headquarters. But it isn't him. It's somebody. They got judges, man. They're sergeants, right? We'll figure out who they are. So, wherefore to this day, no one hath been advanced to the estate and degree. Oh, did I read this one? Okay. Unless he first be called sergeant at law. Neither is any one besides a sergeant permitted to plead in the court of common pleas, where all real actions are pleaded. Right? Titles to land. This is where it's done. Court of common pleas. Real actions. Go look it up in Bouvier's. Wherefore to this day no one hath been advanced to the state and degree of a sergeant, till he hath been first a student and a barrister, full 16 years. Every sergeant wears a cord of white silk coif, which is a badge. They are graduates of the law and chief ensign of the habit in which the sergeants at law are distinguished at their creation. So we could worry about trying to pick them out, right? Or we could just go ask the people who made them these, put them under their oath, and say, hey, I need a list of sergeants at law in the area. I want to talk to one of them. Neither shall a judge or sergeant at law take off the said coif, though he be in the royal presence and talking with the king's majesty. So this is the only dude who doesn't bow to anybody. So you will easily believe the most excellent proofs that those laws which are honored and distinguished beyond the civil laws, or those of any kingdom whatsoever, and the profession wherein is attained with so much solemnity and magnificence, as in themselves exceeding valuable, excellent, and sublime, full of knowledge, equity, and wisdom. Go get yourself a sergeant at law, man. Go find one. Okay, and this is the read between the lines stuff in this book. So in FLEDA, the practitioners of law are enumerated under the classes of... I'm not going to read his stuff. You need to download this book. It's at the top, right? I'm just going to pick out things I wanted to yak about instead of reading the whole damn book. A writ for sergeants at law are contained in MSS. I don't know what that is, right? What's the a writ for the call of sergeants at law are contained in the MSS. I haven't been to legal abbreviations dictionary yet, but maybe it's in there, and I'm going to be looking that up. But whatever MSS is a list of them. It's a registration. Sergeants are noticed by Bracton, and the title occurring in our records as early as the time of Edward I. Okay, so we already know they're old. You may likewise know that the state of judges, as well as sergeants at law, so judges have estates too. I will, in the best manner I can, lay before you a method of their appointment, creation, and nature of their office. So we got sergeants at law that eventually become judges. Well, what do the judges do? Well, they're usually in the Court of Common Pleas 5 judges, 6 at most. Either or. They got two different systems, I think, is what they're saying, and it's either or. Because you'll see in the court of the King's Bench, there's either 4 or 5. So they're flipping one around at different places, A or B, A or B. That's the A or B. When you get it up to that high, when you know which of these it is, then you know what the rest of the system is for that particular system. You're at the root of the problem. When any one of them dies and resigns, superseded, the king, with advance of his counsel, makes a choice of one of the sergeants at law, whom he constitutes as a judge. Now, when they say the king in capital K, you have to understand that while the king is out, the chancellor is standing in as the king. He's not saying he's the king. The king would be lowercase king. No, he's standing in for the king. So the chancellor acts as the king, and the chancellor's over the court of chancery, and he's over the court of exchequer, and he's over the court of common pleas. I believe. Okay, so that Lord High Chancellor, there he is. So come into the court, okay, and they're going to do a little ceremony, right? This is all ceremony stuff. This is, it's the way it's been for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, as far back as the legal profession is known. Got the master of the rolls involved. Oh, he's going to read him the oath of office. All right. And, they're going to go through all this without having regard to any person, being a person, and be a man. Go to the 4 courts that matter in English law. The rest of them are bullshit. He shall also swear that he shall not take by himself or any other privily or part a gift, reward, gold, silver, nor of any other thing which might turn him a profit, unless it be meat or drink. You can buy the dude a meal. That's all you can give him. And that of little value for any man that hath any plea or progress depending before him. These people, they got this honorary estate. This is the honorarium that Koch and Blackstone talk about, man. That, look, they've got an honorarium where you go to them as a sergeant at law, as a living man, tell them you are, get past the little test, and, show them your public record. Say, look, they've already set them up. I'm a man. That's what I put on this public record. It has their seal on it. Okay. I need your help. Okay. What can I do for you? And if you take them your foreclosure case and put it on the table, say, I know there's fraud in here, brother. I just can't pick it out. Would you show it to me? Because I believe I need to present something to the King's Bench. And really, I think you're supposed to do that for me. You've got an honorarium. You have, I read your book, brother. I'll bring it in. We can read it together. From Fortescue. So he's going to ascend into an office of dignity. Because it is no degree at law, but only an office of the branch of the magistracy. So it's just a branch of you, right? You're the king. Tell him you are. Determined on the king's good pleasure. Right now it's the big K. He decides. So that's the chancellor, how long somebody stays where they're at. Okay, so then he changes his habit, but not only sergeant's law, he is clothed in a long robe. Okay. When only a sergeant at law, he is clothed in a long robe. So this is the old days, how they used to dress. After he's made judge, instead of a hood, he shall be habited with a cloak fastened upon his right shoulder. Ornaments of so they continue on with the tradition. But this is interesting. Judges of England do not sit in the king's courts above 3 hours in a day, from 8 till 11. The courts are not open in the afternoon. The suitors of the court betake themselves to the Peevis and other places to advise with sergeants at law and other counsel about their affairs. So these guys are only in court till 11. And then I have to think with the suitors of the court betake themselves to the Purvis, I should look that word up, and other places. So after 11, you go to these other places to advise with the sergeants at law and their counsel about their affairs. So these judges are sergeants at law. I don't know if that means we're supposed to be talking to them, like Jason was told, that you always have a standing chamber meeting. And you can go ask them a question. Is this lawful? And their counsel about their affairs. Hey, I got a question, brother. Do you believe this was done lawfully? So from 8 to 11, they're in court. The rest of the time, I think they're there to answer questions. The judges, when they have taken their refreshments, spend the rest of the day in the study of laws, reading Holy Scriptures and other innocent amusements. Okay, so they're going to go have fun. They work 3 hours a day. I'll take that job. Right? Now, what I'm wondering here also is, maybe just because they're not there, so court's closed, so the sergeants at law that are the only ones who are allowed to work within the court anyways are still in the building. And that's where you're going to find them. After 11 o'clock. See who comes out of the room. Okay. Good stuff to read. The whole book is really good. It's not that long a book. In fact, a lot of it is read between the lines. He probably didn't write 90 pages. But it's been edited. And so here's some more editing that goes in there. More about who these guys are. And elsewhere the prophets speak and the righteous say, their children should be blessed. Thereupon my prince, by something of justice, which make it rich and honorable, which perpetuates the generation of those who love her, in order to this, by a zealous lover of the law, which is the parent of justice, that may be said and verified of you, which is written of the righteous, their seed shall endure forever. Their seed shall, they're here. Their seed shall endure forever. They've taken an oath to man. Why do you go to him as a man? Oh, so, just more stuff. See, here's that word again. Pervicy is mentioned in Saucer. A sergeant, a law, both wise and often. Okay. Good stuff to read. What else do we have on here? Anyways, I've really read enough to you. I really just wanted you, if you're interested, you'll go download the book and read it. If it means anything to you. 'Cause I don't want to read this whole thing. So I'm going to send the paper, and we can talk about who these guys are, but the thing is that they exist, and the people that know who they are any of the justices of the King's Bench or the Court of Common Pleas, and also the Chancellor. They know who these guys are, so we just want some names, right? We're not asking them for legal advice. I just want a list of names of sergeants at law in the area. I got a few questions. Formerly in England, an officer nearly answering to the more modern bailiff of 100. Also, an officer whose duty was to attend to the king. And so on, the High Lord Steward of Court to arrest traitors and other offenders. Got a traitor? That's who you take your, hey, I think somebody's committing treason. They didn't follow the law. Sergeant or an officer of the courts of the highest grade among the practitioners of the law. An officer in the courts of the highest grade among the practitioners of the law. And right here, this was a. So I just put in sergeants at arms because that was supposed to be another variation, that sergeants at law became sergeants at arms, and sergeants at arms, well, the sheriff have sergeants at arms. So for 6 centuries, starting from the 1300s, sergeants at law ranked above all other attorneys in the kingdom. So from the 1300s, for 600 years, and now you're going to tell me they don't exist. Yeah. Only 1,200 men were ever promoted to the dignity of sergeant. The last died in 1921. So there's not a lot of them. Only 1,200 men were ever promoted to the dignity of sergeant in 600 years. You better go ask the people who know where they are, because there ain't a lot of them out there. Makes me think even more. It's just the judges. Only 1,200 men were ever promoted to the dignity of sergeant from 1300 to 1921. Do the math. Although the sergeants have never had an extant counterpart in the United States. Yeah, right. The order has had a lasting impact on U.S. law. It has been cited as reasons for regarding U.S. attorneys as officers of the court, and specifically for requiring court-appointed attorneys to subsidize their legal representation of clients who cannot afford private attorneys. So when they say they're going to appoint you an attorney, we'll say, yeah, I want a sergeant at law. That's the one I'll take, since I seem to have a choice. So they originated in the Court of Common Pleas, one of the four superior courts at Westminster in the 14th century. At one time, all the courts were in one spot, and then they broke it up. That's what the Magna Carta was all about. Break them into pieces. So they said that the King's Bench and the Exchequer follow the King, and at Westminster stays the Court of Common Pleas and the Chancery Court. All right? There you go. There's your 1 and 2. Okay. They had an antecedent in the 13th century legal practice known as something, a term of French meaning something, help formulate the plaintiff's counts or causes of action, and preparatory work called counting. Okay, now that's interesting. The preparatory work called counting. You may want to remember that. You want some help with your counting. In the 14th century, they became sergeants at law, right? Now, in Lord Coke's 4th book, Institutus of Law, Court of Request, it talks about that's the place that you go, that people took their stuff and they told them what to do with it. You had a civil matter, you had a law matter, you had an equity matter, what it was. Okay. That's where these guys are working. They're working doing that when they're in that capacity. They may not be sitting at a desk is all. Interesting stuff. The sergeants were an exalted order, paid by the crown and admitted to practice before a single court. They belonged to a closed society that had significant power. Only sergeants could argue in the Court of Common Pleas. Whoever can argue in a court of common law or in the Court of Common Pleas is the man. And their ranks provided the only candidates for judges of the Common Pleas and the King's Bench. There you go. So the guys on the King's Bench were definitely sergeants at law. Go ask them about them. Next time you're in probate asking questions, ask the clerk. Tell the clerk you're looking for a sergeant at law. Tell the probate registrar I need a sergeant at law. See what they say to that. By the 15th century, regard for the sergeants was so high that no particular law practitioner in a legal profession was considered their equal. Oh, come on, you got the best. Man has the best. Let's go use it. Sergeants came from the elite of the legal profession. The Chief Justice of the Common Pleas prepared a list of 7 or 8. Well, there we go again. This is how they did it. So for us, in U.S. law, the legacy of the sergeants derives from their role as officers of the court. The position, so they're going to be an officer, they're officers of the court. The position was familiar to holding public office, or similar to holding public office. As such, carried duties. The sergeants, okay, well, how do you get a public office? You get elected. The sergeants could be commanded to serve indigent clients. You don't have to have any money. They could be commanded to. So when they want you to do an indigent thing, say, yeah, so I can see a sergeant at law, call me what you need to. In the 12th century, or in the 20th century, U.S. federal courts turned to this tradition for justification in viewing attorneys as officers of the court who also could be appointed to serve the needy. A significant example in the opinion of the United States somebody when the Ninth Circuit appeals required court-appointed attorney to subsidize the cost vacating the jurisdiction. Okay, so what I think they did, right, if in 600 years there were only 1,200 of these guys created, and at that time they weren't all, judges necessarily. They're just officers of the court, right? So if they can argue a case, doesn't mean they have to be on the bench then. So they changed it so that more people could, we're going to have more of these guys, right? We're going to change the name, protect them for whatever reason, hide them until somebody finds them. And if you're not getting anything over the last few weeks, right? It's amazing the answers you get when you go ask the right frickin' question. So, good enough. All right, I'm going to cut this one off and quit asking me. Let's go ask the sergeants at law. Let's go find them. You'll have a great night. See ya.